Well, hello and welcome to episode 177 of Drink the Movies. I'm Brian here, as always, with Michaela. And Michaela, if you go back to our childhood, there were a handful of things that got seen over and over again. And even though this one was a little bit on the young side, I feel like for us, it had a mainstay in both the video rental and the TV movie arenas. And that is Neverending Story. Happy 40th anniversary, Neverending Story.
Happy anniversary. And we have a bet, you and me, that if I break into song, I'm going to have to talk about the saddest scene in the whole movie.
Hmm,
And second saddest, maybe. I don't know. We can talk
debatable.
about it.
We're
It's
going to talk
debatable.
about
It's
that. Yeah.
it's debatable. But
You know what scene
I'm really
out
going to
there.
try
You know
not
what
to break
scene.
into song. I know. Yeah, everybody who's seen this movie knows exactly what we're talking about. And I don't want to talk about that by myself because I won't be able to get through it probably without breaking into tears. So I'm going to really try not to break into song. But all I got to say is the opening sequence to this is like the coolest, most like musical weather. This it was this film that really got me into weather.
It is crazy weather.
Twisters,
Yeah.
move over,
Yeah.
Twister.
Yeah,
This
get out of here,
this
Twister.
cloud conformity, this stuff coming in, that was
That's right.
nuts,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, Twister lost its handle on best movie of all time rewatching this. Yeah, the weather effects are nuts in the
That's
beginning.
right. Absolutely. But yeah, so I definitely watched this film as a kid. I never saw it in the theater for sure because I would have been like 3 when it came out, but
Hmm.
I definitely had it on my top shelf of my movie theater room in the basement when I was growing up in Montana. It was something that I watched over and over again until that one scene, and then I just would quit watching it. So I've seen the first half or the first 30 minutes like 100 times. And then the
Yeah,
the end always gets a little fuzzy to me, but yeah.
that's
What
that's
about
right.
you?
We're
Did you see this a lot?
Yeah, absolutely. I did see it a lot, and we're going to talk about all that and more once we get into the movie here a little bit today. So let's do this, Michaela. In order to get through the saddest scene in movie history, and then maybe the second saddest scene in movie history, which might also be the saddest scene in this movie, we're going to need a drink. So let's do that. Let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back to whip up this week's cocktail.
So Brian, we talked about this a little bit, but I was trying to make
Hmm.
this cocktail. I was like, what could we do? And part of me was like, I should make a mocktail for the kids. And then I was like,
Should
kids
do.
shouldn't watch this. It's too emotionally dramatic.
Also,
And
also
then I
true.
was
Also
like,
true.
right. But I was like, what could we possibly do? And I thought, something like a swamp of sadness thing, or like that, and there's Inglewook and his wife or partner Erg makes this like potion to
Hmm.
give
Hmm.
to Atreyu in the middle of it. And I was like, we could do something with that, with maybe like that like smokes. But then I saw the first scene where Bastian wakes up, he goes into the kitchen, he's talking to his dad. It's everything's a disarray. He's like working on mail. There's like butter on the counter. It's really strange. And he makes this weird thing in a blender. And I was like, aha, we should do that. We should do something like that. And what he made was literally orange juice and an egg that he just blends together.
Yeah,
It's so
that's true.
gross. I think
It
it's
is gross.
because I think that's supposed to be like a hangover cure. So it's obvious that he is also not dealing well with the death of his wife, just like Bastian
That
is
could
not
be.
dealing
That
well
could
with the
be.
death of his mom. Not that they want to talk about it because they don't really actually talk about any of that. But and
Yeah,
so I
that's true.
thought,
That's
what
true.
if we did an orange whiskey sour? Now, I scored the internet to look for something that might be good, and we found it on kirstenhickman.com.
Hmm.
The
Yep.
one big concern that I saw with this though, and was that there wasn't any egg in it, and I like a
No
sour
egg.
with egg in it. So we're going to talk about the variations of this as we go along.
Okay, yeah, for sure. So, found this one, and it's pretty good, and it's pretty simple actually, which is nice. So, especially you're putting something together, and yeah, if you got some kids out there, they want to do a never-ending story mocktail, for sure, just go ahead and get them some sort of juice or something, but a rim, that glass, and some pop rocks, right? They can have their own rock biting adventures out there for sure. But
I
we're
like
doing
that.
the orange whiskey sour. It's pretty good. It is pretty simple. And it goes together like this. So into like a shaker tin goes 2 ounces of your favorite bourbon, or you could use like a blended whiskey, like a Canadian blended whiskey or something like that. But 2 ounces of that, 1 ounce of orange juice, freshly squeezed, is going to be best, for sure. Because it's not going to be nearly as acidic as like a bottled orange juice is going to be. So 1 ounce of that, 1 ounce of cranberry juice, and a quarter ounce of simple syrup. Go ahead and shake that with some ice, and then you can strain it. into a glass. I did a glass with a big ice cube in there because I wanted not a bunch of dilution in that, but wanted to make sure that it was cold. Sip and enjoy. You can garnish it with a little slice of that orange if you want to. And it's pretty good, Michaela. This was a pretty basic drink. It was a little sweet, but not too sweet. I thought this was pretty good, especially, things that you probably have on hand most time. I typically have a few bottles of cranberry juice around for cocktails and otherwise, and yeah, this was a good one.
Did you use, and I had a question because I want to talk about what I liked and didn't like about this, but did you use pure cranberry juice or did you use one of those cranberry cocktail things from Ocean Spray where it's like a bunch of stuff?
I use the ocean spray, but it is the 100% juice version. It's not the
Cool.
not the cranberry like the cranberry cocktail juice. So
Yeah, yeah. I think that that's really important here, because you can go to the store and get cranberry juice, and it's gonna have a lot of extra sugar in it, and you really want that kind of astringentness, I think, to balance off and really set the vibrancy of the orange, or else it's gonna be kind of strange
mhm.
to
Yeah.
me. So I really liked this. What I did, I made two. Well, actually, I might have made three. So I really am gotten into sours, and so I made it the way that it came, and then I also made it with a egg white, and then I dry shook the egg white. So I've made three, and I have to say, in this one anyway, the dry shaking or not didn't really add that much of a difference, but it
Mhm.
created a much more velvety texture, obviously, when you added the egg, which was kind of nice. It changed the color a little bit. It made it lighter. I really thought this was pretty good. I would have liked for a little bit more oranginess. I don't know if it's because because I used fresh oranges, but I would have liked it to be a little bit more orangey.
Mhm.
And I don't know how we would fix that other than add more orange juice. Um,
Yeah,
or
I mean,
maybe,
for sure you could dial up the orange juice and dial back the amount of cranberry juice. I think the cranberry juice here in this is more just for the added kind of acidity to it because you're not using any like lime juice or lemon juice like you would think of in a normal whiskey sour. And like you, Michaela, I wanted to also try it with the egg whites. We're big proponents of the egg whites here, especially in a whiskey sour. But I have to be honest, I prefer the way this recipe is written as opposed to the egg white version because this is a little bit sweeter. With the egg white, it almost gave it like this like mouthfeel and taste of like a melted creamsicle, which was fine for a sip or two, and then it got a little bit too kind of
mm,
umptious, a little bit too overly sweet, I thought.
mm. Yeah. I mean, I definitely think that you can play with the simple syrup if you're, you know, concerned about that. I don't know, the cranberry juice was interesting. I just felt like, I don't know, I felt like I wanted it to be more orangey and less sweetish. And I really was hoping it would offset with the bourbon. I don't know. I definitely think it was definitely better than what it looked like in the movie, with just orange juice and a whole egg. That looked disgusting. I don't know how.
Uh,
And yeah,
yeah, I don't
hangover
know.
cure or not, man, gross.
He made it in the blender though, so yeah. So give this one a try. It is very good. You can try it with or without the egg. Let us know which way you prefer it because this was a pretty good one. And like I said, it's an easy. It's going to be a nice kind of like middle of the week cocktail. If you have these ingredients on hand, it was an easy one to put together. And maybe you want to just skip that and go straight to like a shot of tequila as we get into like the saddest, most depressed kids movie of all time. So let's do this, Michaela. Let's go ahead and mix up another one of these cocktails, and we'll be right back to chat about this week's film, The Neverending Story.
What is the secret of this enchanted book? What wonders are hidden within its pages? What magical spell does it cast on all who read it? What is the secret of the never-ending story?
Spoiler warning for the Neverending Story. If you've not seen this, you've had 40 years to do it. So press pause and go watch this film, and then go make yourself an orange whiskey sour with or without an egg. And then you can come back and you can have us chat about all the things, because we're going to talk about all the things. And there's a lot of death. There's a lot of sadness. There's a lot of nothing. There's a lot of destruction. So I mean, buckle up. If you've not seen it, get ready, get a box of tissues, get a shot, something. Because this is a wild ride.
That's right.
Even 40 years later.
40 years later, grab your orange juice and your egg. Let's go. Let's go. So this was released in 1984. It was directed by Wolfgang Peterson, and it stars Barrett Oliver as a Bastian, our bookish savior of Fantasia, Noah Hathaway as Atreyu, the warrior sent on the quest to stop the Nothing, and Tammy Stronach as the childlike empress who sees her kingdom destroyed. But luckily rebuilt. Spoiler, as we said. So, Michaela, this was based on a book, which is cool because the movie is about a book. But this book was written by one Michael Ende, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. So, let's just get into the movie here, Michaela. We're getting started up. We're at the breakfast table with the dad and this kid. You can see that this kid is all sorts of depressed. He can't even like open a jar. His dad is in the background mixing up a egg and an orange juice. He's like, kid, what are you doing? Get your act together. They don't even like discuss the fact that his mom died, basically. He's just like, get your act together, quit being a nerd, get to school, get on with it.
Yeah. This was really well done because even as a kid, you know that there's a disconnect here, right?
Mm-hmm.
At first he's like, I had a dream about mom, and he's like, yeah, I understand, but we got to get the job done. Can't let your mom's death get in the way of anything else, and like totally like doing a hangover cure because he's probably drinking really heavily. Like I didn't get that as a kid, but I sure as heck get that now. And and then he's like prides himself on, he's like, I think it's time we have a little chat. And basically the chat is, stop drawing in your math book. And why didn't you try out for the swim team? And Bastian's like, they were you. Okay. And then he's like, you're late for school. And he's like, I'm never late for school. I'm not going to be late. It's just this total disconnect between parent and child in the middle of like severe emotional trauma. It's not good. It doesn't start off well.
It's not great.
And it just goes from bad to worse. Then he goes to school. Now I don't know where he lives. I thought it was like New York City or like Boston. So like definitely a big city that he lives in because he walks to school. And he meets up with these 3 bullies that are gross and they chase him. They try and take his money. He doesn't have any money. They put him in a garbage can. This isn't good. The only way he can outrun him is to like jump into this really old bookshop that looks like, I don't know, a mix between Hoarders and Silence of the Lambs. There's like books hanging and weird stuff everywhere. And it's not the most organized of bookshops.
It's not the most organized of bookshops. Yeah, that's where you go when you're getting chased down by bullies. And he goes in there, and even like the old guy at the bookshop's like, get out of here. I hate kids. Kids are the worst. Kids don't even know how to read. They don't even know about books. But Bastian's like, I know about books. I read all of these classic books. And the old guy's like, we've never read a book like this. And then he sneakily like leaves it behind for Bastian to steal. Bastian does, but he leaves a note behind. He says, I promised to return this book that you told me is going to like devour my soul or something. Basically, this old guy is a very close talker. The old guy creeps me out. I don't like him. I don't like him. Sebastian, takes this book, this very big book, and he goes to school. But unfortunately, class has already started. So instead of just, going in to the classroom, being like, sorry, I'm late, teacher, he's going to go up into the school attic. What is the deal with the school, Michaela? You go up to the attic. There's like bones everywhere. There's like a wolf head hanging on the wall. There's like tattered curtains up there. This is the school from hell. What is this school, Michaela? What is in this attic?
It was in the 80s. That's all I can say. I mean, I'm trying not to shriek into the microphone here because you're making me laugh so hard. Yeah, I don't know is my short answer. I don't know. I don't know what was up with it because first of all, this is the place where like if this looks like it's maybe a middle school or an intermediate school because he looks like he's about 12.
Yep.
This is definitely the place where the bad kids would be going and smoking out, right? Like this is not a place that the good kids go. It looks like it's 7,000 years old. There's dust over everything. He decides it's a great idea to like
doors just unlocked,
and everybody knows where it is. He like finds this key, like he knows exactly what to do. And I'm like, there's a story behind that. And maybe it's talked about in the story. If you've read it, let me know. I want to know. Because he like holes up in there. There's candles. He like has open flame and the The smoke alarms don't go off. What? I don't know. I don't know is the short answer. I don't know. It was 1984, dude. I
It was
mean, we let
1984.
kids walk to school on their own in 1984.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's
I mean,
fine.
I guess, yeah, if you go, yeah, that's right, absolutely.
Everything's
So
covered in dust, and yet he gets like a blanket. He wraps
he gets
himself up in
a
it to like have a
he gets a
cozy
blanket.
night.
There's like candles and matches up there. Yeah, he's totally fine. He's up there, instead of being late to class, he just goes and hides away in this attic. He's going to be reading this book that he just stole from this guy, right? It's the Neverending Story. So let's get into the book here a bit. Michaela, he starts reading. This kid is a big reader, loves adventures, and right off the bat, we are introduced to some pretty zany characters. We got a couple of them here. We've got I don't even know if they're given names in the film, but they're credited with names. So we've got Teeny Weeny. He's got like a cool hat on. It's kind of like a Mad Hatter kind of a hat, and he's got a very fast racing snail. That's cool. We've got Night Hob. He looks very disheveled kind of guy there. He's got a bat that's asleep, hanging upside down, and they're there, just having a good time, doing a little barbecuing. When suddenly this gigantic, like tricycle built of stone rolls up on them, and lo and behold, it is a rock biter. So we've got a trio of handy helpers in the story now. The Rockbiter is my favorite character in the movie, bar none, except I do like the Racing Snail. Racing Snail is pretty awesome. Very cool kind of character design on these things. I don't know. They were obviously some sort of like animatronic, like puppet sort of things, but they look really cool. Look really cool. And the Rockbiter is like, oh, you guys are camping out, hogging all the best rocks. I'm gonna sit down, have a little snack on these things, try not to die from the avalanche of boulders raining down on you, and tell you a little bit of a story about how my home is being erased by the nothing.
Yeah, they don't even really have a name for it, and I really like that because I like to think that in this world of Fantasia, right? They don't really understand where they are, kind of like we don't as humans. We've taken a lot of time to try and understand the world around us. So when something
Hmm.
unexplained happens, they're like, "What do we call it?" And he's like, he's trying to explain. He's like, there was a lake and then it was gone. And they were like, oh, it dried up. And he's like, no, it was not even a dried up lake. Like there was nothing there. I don't know what to call it. And
Hmm.
everybody kind of comes together and is like, oh, the same thing's happening to us in the South or us in the East or us in the West. And so they're all like these kind of, I don't know, senators going and like on the quest from their land to go to this ivory tower,
Hmm. Hmm.
where the childlike empress lives, although we don't see her, and get some answers because apparently the empress knows everything and the empress can solve all their problems. And so they all show up, and I love
Can't
this
even solve
because
her own problem.
right,
She's
right.
sick.
Yeah, she we go in, it's really beautiful. It looks like a piece of like a rose out of some sort of plaster and like these
Hmm.
beautiful ivory steps, and the music is amazing. The music is amazing. I'm going to say that again for the kids in the back. The
It's
music
very
is
good.
really
It's very
good.
good.
The score for this is awesome. Klaus Doldinger and Giorgio Moroder, congrats to you guys, because this it's awesome. But this guy comes out, he looks kind of like a cone head, but not really. And he's like, I've got some bad news. The Empress is really sick. We don't know what we're gonna do. We have no plans. And I love all the people that are all the beings that are there. They all look really strange. You see like a court jester, you see
Yes.
this big
Hmm.
like dual face thing that scared me a lot as a kid. But there are all these beings that are there. That are all really shocked and scared. And he's like, but fear not, we've asked for this one guy named Atreyu. He's from the Plains people. He's gonna come and he's gonna sort all this out.
He's,
Uh
he's gonna get it taken care of for us. Yeah, I think my favorite of the weird creature people, there's like a disembodied like elephant head. I think that's my favorite
yes.
one. There's so many like weird people there. I like, all our like trio, like our opening trio there, like go to the palace and they're just like there, like peeking in the window, like no palace security. I guess everything's all fine. But yeah, luckily we have Atreyu coming, right? So this little kid, his name is Atreyu. He comes up and he's like, "Hey, I'm here. You guys sent for me, or whatever." Uh, but Kayron, that's the guy. He's like the hand of the childlike empress. There, he's like, "You are a child. Get out of here. Get out of my face." And he's like, "I'm the only Atreyu there is. What are you talking about, guy?" And he's like, "Oh, hold on. Okay, you are tasked with going on this adventure." My favorite part of the whole movie, I think, Michaela, is that he's like, This task, this challenge, this trek before you is very dangerous. Leave your weapons. And I'd be like, no, I'm out. Why am I leaving my weapons? You just told me how dangerous it
Yeah.
is. Why do I have to leave my weapons?
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense at all. But he says, here, take this, and you can take this medallion. It's these really cool like snakes eating each other. It's the same medallion that's on the front of the book. And go be on your way. Go find the cure for our childlike empress.
Yeah. Seeing this as an adult, I mean, it's been a little bit since I'd seen it. So I saw it for the purpose of the podcast, and I immediately had the same reaction. I was like, that makes zero sense. He's like, you must go alone. Like, you can't bring anybody with you. You can't bring any of your weapons. And then it's like, it's gonna be really hard. It's gonna be really bad. Good luck. Goodbye. And then there's like this super happy music at the end of that where he gets on his horse's back. It's his horse is his best friend. It's named Artax. It's really great. And they're like riding all over the place. And you see, it's been a couple days, there's this beautiful stream. They like stop and have lunch, and that looks really great. And I love that piece, but the beginning of this does not make, I don't know, there's a dichotomy, because on one hand, the guy's like, it's really going to be dangerous. It's really going to be awful. And then it seems like they're in this playful space. And then we cut to this really awful scene of what looks like, I don't know, a werewolf, like a big werewolf with green eyes, like going through chasing forests and looking for Atreyu and his horse. And that's really terrifying. Like, they don't seem scared enough. They don't seem scared enough. If I had the werewolf of London looking after me, I would be.
It's like an agent of the nothing, right? It's called the Gmork, I think, is what they call it later in the film. Apparently, it was a manifestation of that giant, like, dire wolf-sized head that is hanging up in Bastian's school. Probably is where that's coming from, maybe because you're imparting yourself into the story, and we are following along with Atreyu. Atreyu is going on some pretty rad journey, like you said. There's like a scene at the brook, which is really cool because he's like sitting there having like a snack with the horse. Artax, that's pretty good. They're going across like a snowy rift and like some like desert plains and all sorts of things. And then they end up in the worst place of all time. It's called what is it called? Like the Swamps of Sadness or something like that.
Swamps of Sadness.
The Swamps of Sadness, the Swamps of Terribleness. And we find out, I don't know how much mud they had to bring in for the production of this film. It's like 40 million tons of mud in this place they're walking through. It's like knee deep on the kid. The horse is like struggling to get through the mud. I didn't love watching that, to be honest, back again as an adult. But they're getting through. They're going through there. And one of the things about the Swamp of Sadness is if you let the sadness overtake you, the Swamp of Sadness is going to claim you. And they're going through, and it gets harder and harder until Artax, the poor horse, doesn't want to go on anymore. Artax has given up the will to keep going. It is horrible. I don't know why this would be any part of a children's story. Not even worth talking about. See, I didn't make Michaela talk about it. After all, plot hole right here, though. Artax sinks down into the mud. Awful, awful, awful stuff. The Swamps of Sadness say that if you get sad, you'll also get consumed by the swamps. Was Atreyu not sad? What the heck? What?
No. And here's the thing. Okay, so I was, when we started watching this scene, I was like, this scene is BS, and that's exactly why, Brian. I was like, this doesn't make any sense. And then I realized who was wearing Orin. Orin was supposed to protect Atreyu, right? It was supposed to protect the wearer, and that's why, because even though he was sad, he wasn't so sad he gave up. And even at the end, when he's begging Artax to like try, he's like, I'm not going to give up. I'm not giving up, Artax. I'm not giving up on you. And it's really, really sad. So I think that is why, that although it gets really bad for him, the Orin has protected him somehow. And it's interesting because I think that is one of the things that kind of helps him along his way. And that's why they said, hey, no weapons. You don't need a weapon. You just need Orin.
I don't know. Need this. You just need this necklace. Could I have a necklace from a horse? Now I gotta walk.
Right. Well,
I gotta walk the rest of the way.
Right. And then find like the biggest, oldest looking turtle there is in Morla, the ancient one, which I find interesting. Again, turtles can live to be like 100, hundreds of years old. That's kind of neat. And of course, they're like, what if we make this turtle the size of a mountain? It's kind of comedic because the turtle's allergic to Atreyu, so he keeps sneezing on him.
It's very gross. Yeah.
It's real gross. It's like, yeah. But Morla has nothing to say, really. At first, it's like, I don't care that I don't even care. Like, And then he's like, you need to go to the Southern Oracle. That's what you need to do. And it's 10,000 miles away. So good luck.
So good luck on
And
that. Morla is awesome. Right, it's in the Shell Mountain, so of course it's a turtle. There is like the most epic shot. It's one of my favorite shots in all of movies. To be honest, it pulls back and it's a super wide shot, and you see Atreyu like in the tree and like the whole of like Morla and her neck there. It looks like it was taken from about like 5 miles away from where the scene was shot. It's really really cool looking, but very similar, to well, the whatever the being is in Hitchhiker's Guide, right? Like, oh, I don't know. I don't know. Go ask someone else. Come back later. I can't be bothered with you because I'm allergic to annoying little kids that let their horses get swallowed up into my swamp. So sorry about that. So what are you going to do, right? You're 10,000 miles away. You are sad. You are down in the dumps. You are fallen ill. You got this crazy wolf on your case. You're going to pass out. But luckily, everyone needs a little bit of luck, right, when it comes to these adventures, and you're going to get picked up by someone that is pretty lucky. That is none other than the greatest character in all of film history. That is Falkor, the Luck Dragon.
Falkor. I found this to be the biggest plot hole because it's like, where the heck has he been this entire time? He just kind of shows up, right? And he shows
That's almost
up
as
right
bad
as
as not having an eagle at the beginning of Lord of the Rings. So just go drop that ring off.
I mean, you said it, Brian, not me. I'm just saying, like, this is faster. Falkor is faster than a horse. The horse could have stayed home. The horse would still be alive. I mean, come on now. But I love Falkor. He is like the weirdest animatronic puppet thing that I've ever seen. He's got like the face of a dog. He's got like the body of a, I don't know, like a lizard, but with fur on the sides and on
dragon.
The top.
He's a furry dragon, feathery dragon.
But did you notice that his scales looked like they were juicy? Does that make sense? Like,
what?
There's a scene where he's getting like a shot of medicine as well. He's getting like his vitamins from that one, the old lady who lives in next to the Southern Oracle. And it looks like his scales actually look like almost like bits of corn cob, only they're like shiny and light colored. So I found it kind of off-putting, but I really loved the design of Falkor for that reason, because he's full of surprises. Like, I just really liked him.
That's the first time anyone has ever described Falkor as a corn on the cob, but I'm here for it.
But like a light white shimmering corn cob. It's kind of interesting. Anyway, so Atreyu gets picked up right in the nick of time because Gamork was literally about to eat him whole, and he gets picked up. He gets taken almost the whole 10,000 miles to the Southern Oracle. He's only got like 100 miles to go or something. And that's where he meets Ingewook and Urgel, who's this old biddy married couple. And he's like a scientific specialty is the Southern Oracle. So he's like talking to him about all the things he's got to do. And the woman is like, I'm going to dress your wounds and I'm going to make you drink weird stuff. And that's really cool. You see a couple of trials and tribulations, right? He's got to go through this thing where laser shoots out of his eyes and it's going to kill you. And he manages to do that. But then something weird happens. He goes in for his second trial, right? And his second trial is a mirror. And when he goes in, he doesn't see himself. He sees a boy reading a book. And I love this scene because this is when things start to really change the tide for me, where, you've been told that Bastian's reading this book. This book is supposed to be crazy. It's really supposed to bring you in. It's different like other books because you can always close the book. Bastian can't seem to close the book. And then he's himself inserted into this book because he's reading it. And he's seeing that Atreyu is looking at him in this totally scary attic in the school. And it really starts to change like the way in which we think about what is Fantasia and what is actually happening here.
Yeah, for sure. Because just prior to this, he screams at a part of the part of the book, and the characters kind of react to it, and he's like, that doesn't make any sense. But yeah, then he sees them kind of through that mirror, which is really pretty cool there in the Road of Trials. Inglewook and Urgle are pretty fun. This little scientist bickering couple, they're very reminiscent of the scientist bickering couple in Princess Bride. So I don't know if Princess Bride is kind of knocking these two off, but very, very similar kind of characters here, and they watch. The first test is so scary. There's these big, huge, statue, monolith, monument things, and they just like laser down some guy and like, like knight armor. That's pretty scary. That's pretty scary. But he goes in. We finally get to talk to the Southern Oracle, and she's like, "Oh yeah, you just need someone, from the outside world to basically, give the." Childlike Empress a new name. That seems pretty easy peasy. Seems like you could have done that already. Let's just have this. Let's just have someone do it. So you got to get yourself outside of this realm, right? So he goes back to Falkor, and he's like, Falkor, get me out here. We got to get to the edge of Fantasia. We got to find someone from outside of here, someone from Earth, to basically just give the Empress a new name. Easy peasy, dunzo. Gonna climb on board my luck dragon. Gonna go. But unfortunately, when they get to the end, it's not a good look because they can't get to the end. Nothing is there, and the nothing is starting to consume the whole rest of the realm. Bad look for our luck dragon and Atreyu.
Yeah, they get separated. Atreyu like falls, but apparently you don't die from crushed bones and falling in Fantasia, which is great. He loses the Orin, and that's very important. I feel like now as an adult watching this, he loses the Orin. So he's exposed. He definitely feels more alone than he's ever felt before. Arguably, the saddest scene is next, where he's kind of walking around and he sees no one and nothing except the Rockbiter, who's sitting all on his own. He doesn't have his bike anymore. He doesn't have his friends anymore. He's staring at his hands, and he is really lamenting. And his hands look like they're really strong, but he couldn't hold on to his friends as the nothing just took them away. And as sad as the Artak scene is, because that is very sad and traumatic, this scene I feel was a much deeper sadness for me as an adult watching it again. I think we as kids, because we don't see it, we're like, oh, that's sad, they're gone. But honestly, as an adult, I bawled my little eyes out watching this part, way more than I did watching the whole Artak's death as an adult, because he's so sad. And he's like, at this point, I'm just going to wait and let the nothing take me, because there's no point anymore. All my friends are gone.
Yeah,
and I didn't save them.
That's pretty tough. That's pretty tough. These look like big, strong hands. He says it's really bad. And yeah, I mean, going into the movie, rewatching it again here, I haven't watched it in quite a while. Everyone remembers Artax. That is very sad. But it happens. I didn't remember it, I guess, from like my childhood, watching this 10,000 times. That scene happens pretty early in the film, right? So you don't have like as much like connection to the world yet, I feel like maybe potentially. But yeah, then later, that is it's crushingly sad. And it leads into my favorite part of the movie, right? As he's kind of wandering around there, Atreyu, and looking for bits. He goes into this cave and he sees all of these murals of the adventure that he's been on, which is very like mythical and awesome. And I really, really love that. And then he has kind of this confrontation with that wolf character. His named Gamork, right? We learn his name right now is Gamork. He is an agent of the darkness, and he's basically telling Atreyu that there's nothing you can do about this guy, right? Because our whole world resides in the imaginations of human beings, of Earthlings, of kids, right? And there's nothing you can do about it, right? So if there's no kids out there, creating this world for us, then it's just nothing. They have a bit of a scrap there. Atreyu gets a sharp rock and gets the one up on that and calls out for Falkor, who comes to rescue once again. He's found his little medallion of strength, and they go, but it's not looking great. It looks like Fantasia is not long for the world because everything is gone basically. But there is one shiny beacon out there.
One shiny beacon, and that is the ivory tower. Again, he kisses the Orin, right? Because Falkor found his Orin. He's got it now again. And he's like, if the ivory tower still stands, take us there. And, it's like this. I love this part. I don't know how they did it because, again, this is 40 years ago. It doesn't look particularly great as far as like special effects, but I love the look of it, where there are these just like bits of earth that are and meteors like surrounding them, and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden one of them moves and you got the dun 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 dun, right, and you see the big tower and you're like, oh, there it is. And they end up going in. He goes in, he says goodbye to Falkor, and it's really sad. And then you see you finally get to lay your eyes on this lifelike, childlike empress, and she's like a child. She's like 10, and
she's
she's
not
got
childlike.
this beautiful.
She is a child.
She's yeah, and so she's like super wise. She's got great eyebrows, and she's very like meek. And he's like, well, I have to give you a name. And she's like, yeah, but you can't be the one to give me a name. And he's like, wait a minute, you knew this the whole time? And that's where, as an adult, I start to lose it a little bit, because he's like, why didn't you just tell me?
He's like, my horse died. Everyone else died. Why didn't you just tell me that? She makes a good point, right? Like, you had to go on this adventure so we could like hook some kid in to give me a name, right? No one's just going to do it for sure. And Bastian now at this point, despite the fact that he stole this book, despite the fact that he skipped school, despite the fact that he's been hiding up in the attic all day, despite the fact that it's storming, his dad might be worried about him. I don't know for sure, but the school is definitely closed. He's out well late now. Decides that right now is the time he's going to buckle down and to give up on these childish things, right? So he's going to push back. He says, "I don't want to do it, right? Gotta give all this up. Gotta give up this childlike." And you get the childlike empress there. She's like crying, like pleading with Bastian, like calls Bastian out by names, like, just give me a new name. That doesn't seem that hard, that guy. But he does eventually. His mom's name.
He does. His mom's name. And it's really beautiful. As a kid, I never understood what he said, though.
Yeah,
like,
I still don't understand what he says. Yeah.
It's moon fire, I think is what it is. Hold on, because I had to look it up. I was like, somebody has actually, because even when it first,
it's Moonchild.
Subtitles Moonchild.
According to Wikipedia, because I still couldn't understand him. It's storming.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he's screaming. Bastian.
Right. Can we do have to talk a little bit about this school, though, right? Because he's there, the school closes, then it like it's like a dark and stormy night. He's like completely on his own. And even when he there's a couple times where he stops reading and he's like, no, I've had enough. I can't do it. And he even tries to leave. And I think they've locked him in there. So he's stuck until the next morning. I mean, where are the parents? I mean, but you've just lost your wife. Your son's not come home. What the heck, man? What the heck?
Maybe thought he was out doing some stuff. Yeah, it looks like he's about to leave. And yeah, that's what I thought. I was like, oh, did he get locked up in there? But he comes back up and he's like, no, I can't give up on this story, right? Trey, you can't give up. I can't give up. I really like, he's like rationing his food throughout the day. That's pretty good. He takes like a bite of a sandwich. He's like, not too much. Got a long way to go. But yeah, he shouts it out, right? Moonchild, I guess is what he says. And then poof, he is just there in the void of nothingness. Just him and the childlike empress. She is holding out a grain of sand and she's like, you saved us. This is all that's left, though. So good job, guy. But and Bastian's like, well, I'm glad that I could save you. Is there anything I can do to help? And basically, she's like, this whole place is just, your imagination. So just make it up as you go. So what does he do? He undoes all of the nothing, which is pretty good. No harm, no foul. Artax is still there riding around. You got all of your other Teeny Weeny and Nighthawk. They're still there. Rockbiter doesn't have to be sad anymore. It's all good. Falkor's there. He gets to ride on Falkor. That's pretty good.
Yeah. And I think they all kind of remember, or they all, now that they're back, they have the knowledge of who he is. So it's not like it never happened, but it's like we're all okay again. We're restored and made whole. And I love that. And maybe that's the saving grace, I think, behind the whole Artax thing, because I think even now knowing that it ends well, you're able to watch it again because it was just so sad. But he has another wish, right? Bastian has one more wish that we see. The first wish was, bring everything back, and he did. And then the second was, I want to go on a ride on Falkor, and I want to go scare the bullies who've been bullying me, and I want to scare them and make them go into a garbage can, which we can debate whether or not a revenge is a good thing or not, but it feels real real good to watch this because they're punks. Those kids are jerks, and I'm kind of okay with it. He wasn't ever going to hurt him. He just wanted
Falcor's
them to
laughing it up,
experience.
so he thinks it's
Yeah,
great.
Falcor thinks it's great. He's like,
I
and
like,
fun fact, Falcor's voice is the same voice as Gamork. Did you know that? It's by the
yeah,
same
he did
by the
all the
same guy.
things. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
I yeah, Revenge is pretty good. Even like the first like bookshop guys, like, why don't you just punch that kid in the nose if he's gonna be chasing you around?
Right.
But yeah, Bastion's a lover, not a fighter. He's a reader of books and developer of arts is what he does. And yeah,
Yeah.
that's it, right? He gets his revenge on the bullies. Easy peasy, right? You just read the story, get sucked into it a little bit. But that's okay. That's okay. At the end, everything is all good. So I guess that begs the question then, was Atreyu really in charge of this task at all? I don't know for sure. But Bastian is there to save the day in the end. So the end, Michaela, the Neverending Story does come to an end. Like I said, this was based on a book. It was written by Michael Ende, who sold the rights to the book off to get made into a movie. But was not very keen on the treatment they gave it because apparently this movie only encapsulates about the first half of the book. So he didn't feel like it actually like told like the actual like story of the story that he had done, and ended up actually suing the people that made the movie for control back of his thing. He was really trying to get them to not use the name The Neverending Story on it because he didn't feel like it portrayed the book that he had written very, very well. So there was a long legal battle to go along with that, obviously. And despite the Neverending Story making a lot of money, we wouldn't get a sequel to it because of those legal battles until 1990. Have you ever seen part two of the Neverending Story, Michaela?
Unfortunately, yes, I have. I think it
Oh,
had Jonathan
fortunately,
Brandis
I
in
have
it.
not. Yeah, it doesn't carry
Oh,
over any of the people, obviously, because it was,
it does not. It does
six
not.
years on, right? So,
Yeah, it is very upsetting in a way as a huge fan. So I did remember seeing it in the movie theater, and like the childlike Empress looks like she's still 12. Looks nothing like the Empress. The whole Fantasia looks different. Like nothing is the same.
mhm.
Nothing is the same. Everybody is different. And that's fine. I mean, you're not going to have, people be 12 forever. And I get that. But like the art direction and stuff, it just went a completely different way. And I didn't love it. I don't think it did. I mean, Michael Ende could be mad at the first one all he wants, but whatever was created was really near and dear to a lot of people's hearts. And so it makes me want to go read the book because I didn't realize until doing research on the movie that it was actually based on a book. So I'm definitely going to do that and see how that goes. And that's cool, right? I mean, it's all about, if the whole point is to create imagination and to stop, keep believing in things, I think it did that. So
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It definitely brings about like enough imagination. And I think that it does a good job of, capturing the essence of that, are, creating these worlds and stories like in your mind, right? And then they become like actual like tangible places. I think that is pretty cool, pretty cool. About 20 years ago or so, I guess now, Kennedy Marshall, Kathleen Kennedy and Frank Marshall, production company, were trying to acquire the rights to this along with some others. And apparently just like the legalese attached to it was just too much. Kathleen Kennedy came out and said she didn't think that it was probably ever going to be the case. But apparently just a couple of months ago, probably timing is everything here, as it was coming up on the 40th anniversary of, I think it's German release there. Michael Ende announced that there is going to be a series of films done for this. So we'll have to see if that ever comes to fruition there. So Neverending Story is a classic of the childhood. Like I mentioned at the top, Michaela, you asked me. I remember watching this a lot of times. It seems like we would rent it periodically, but it seems like this was like a movie of the week kind of thing, an awful lot on TV. So I saw this a bunch of times growing up, and yeah, it was always fun. It was always like sad, but still like a fun adventure. And I always really loved the kind of like the creatures, right? Like the rock biter. I really loved the
mhm.
way that the racing snail looks. I think that the racing snail is awesome. And just all that stuff. And it's fun because it's like a fun like kids adventure. And then because it's being imagined and read by a kid, that like the hero, Atreyu, is also a kid. So that's pretty fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a classic for sure. I do think that we did kids movies a lot differently in the 70s and 80s. There's like a handful of films, right, that we lament. We're like, why did they do that? And uh and so that's hard, right? Like I had to decide whether or not it was okay for my kiddo, who's pretty sensitive, to watch this film, right? Just because of the which is weird because I had no problems, letting him watch, most of like Jaws, right? Where it's okay to be scared, but dealing with the idea of really intense loss and sadness, how do you deal with that? But
Mm.
I really, I think this film, it has a legacy, right? There's a reason why 40 years later we're still talking about it, and it's on. I mean, it had this big 40-year push in Regal Cinemas. We didn't get to go see it in the theater. That would have been super cool, but it's very much well beloved, and I am excited if Michael Ende is actually going to get his dream of having a series of films really create this whole story again the way that he envisioned it and wanted it, because it
Mhm.
is his brainchild. So that's exciting. But I am also a little sad because I just love the original, right? And I don't want them to change that. But yeah, this film I really loved as a kid, and I really enjoyed aspects of it as an adult. Aside from the fact that there were a couple main, big plot holes that still I'm wrestling with, but you know.
Well, luckily, here's a fun fact, Michaela, for you and anyone else who is worried about them messing with the original. They could make 100 more movies, and it doesn't change anything about the 1984 Neverending Story. So you'll always have that. Look forward to Michael Ende, getting his dream to do that. I'm interested, actually, kind of in reading the book. There was a lot of really interesting stuff going to how this movie was made. It was the most expensive film like ever made in Germany, like the most expensive film ever made, like outside of the United States, I think at that time, and it ended up doing gangbusters at the box office, just this huge release both in Germany and kind of elsewhere then around the world. So that's pretty interesting. I like that you have the director here, Wolfgang Peterson, who just the year before had been nominated for a couple of Oscars for directing Das Boot and writing that as well. I believe the nod for that in the Academy Awards there too. You go from Das Boot to Neverending Story. Maybe that's where the darkness comes in. And then he ended up moving to Hollywood and doing a bunch of things. I think he did like Air Force One and
Enemy Mine.
Outbreak and Perfect Storm. So a bunch of like kind of like these, like a B level sort of like action adventure movies that we got there into the, mid to late 90s, early 2000s, stuff like that. So yeah, it's a pretty crazy story about how it came to be, but it is a pretty crazy story on screen there. So let us know at home what your memories are of watching The Neverending Story. Let us know if you make one of these orange whiskey sours or you decide to make a mocktail up with some Pop Rocks. Let us know that. Send us pictures of your drinks. Send us pictures of you going to see this at the movie theater. It was just at the theater. Michaela and I missed it. Had some travel, so we weren't able to get out and see this one at the theater. So I had to watch it at home. I had to bust out my old DVD of it there to watch. So that was pretty good. That was pretty good. Let us know all that stuff. You can do that on our social medias. It's at Drink the Movies on Instagram and X and Threads and Blue Sky and Facebook.com/Drink the Movies. If you want to get a little bit more Drink the Movies goodness in your life, you want to support the podcast, you want to come to hangouts, you want to get bonus episodes, all that stuff, we got that on our Patreon. It's patreon.com/Drink the Movies. It's a really great community of really awesome people who support the podcast and let us do a lot of fun things like talk about cocktails and movies all the time. So thank you very much to them. Michaela, they want to make sure that they're subscribed to the podcast so they get all these drops that we're doing all the time now. Where can they do that?
You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Good Pods, anywhere where Spotify podcasts are supported and distributed. We have the best job in the world, and the only reason we get to do that is because of listeners like you. So if you're liking what you're hearing, press the subscribe button on your little rectangle. If you're really liking what you're hearing, tell a friend. Share all of our stuff on social media, whichever one you have. We love all of it. And we are so grateful to be able to do this and help you all build the community around movies and cocktails, because that's the best. That's so cool. And yeah, thanks so much.
Absolutely. So thank you so much. That is The Neverending Story, and we'll talk to you next time on
Drink
Drink the
the Movies.
Movies. I'm only going to have one sip of my orange whiskey sour because we have a long way to go.
Long way to go.